Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ Film Festival. This is our 35th anniversary film festival, and we have some great films as part of our programming. One of my absolute favorites is a film called Unidentified Objects. I'm going to read a description of the film, then we're going to talk to the director and the star of the film. In the new film Unidentified Objects, Peter, played by Matthew August Jeffers of New Amsterdam, is a misanthropic dwarf hiding from the world in a shabby New York City apartment. An unexpected visit from his upbeat and possibly unhinged neighbor Winona, Sarah Hay of Flesh and Bone, forces him out of his shell and into an impromptu road trip. Their destination, what she believes to be the site of an upcoming alien visitation in the wilderness of rural Canada. I love this movie. Again, please welcome the director, Juan Felipe Zuleta, and the star of the film, Matthew August Jeffers.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to gush some more. This is one of my favorite films I've seen all year. I just loved everything about it. I want to start with you, Juan Felipe. How did you, I know that there was another screenwriter, but how did you first hear about this project?
So actually, my writing partner and myself, like we've been working together since 2015. We have written a few projects before this one, and we developed projects together. I'm a big fan of his. When I found him in 2014, and he had a screenplay at a Paramount Pictures office where I used to work, and I read it, and I fell in love with his writing, and then since we became collaborators, and this one in particular was a story that we had notes on. We had like interest. We're very fascinated by stories, character-driven stories. And this one in particular, I had sketches and writings with him of an idea of like telling a story. And we from the beginning was a little person main character, which we just found fascinating from many angles. And then when COVID hit, it kind of like accelerated everything and propelled us to just diving into developing the screenplay right away, because I kind of like the existential crisis that came with COVID, and like, you know, how we can all relate to that moment in time, early 2020, when the world collapsed, and we just found ourselves with like almost this became a medium of putting all of our frustrations. We were both unemployed at the time. We were both struggling financially. Like there were so many things going on. So kind of like Unidentified Objects almost became a medium, and sooner after we found Matthew, who eventually became like our biggest collaborator and creative partner on this.
So Matthew, when you first saw this script, what made it something you really wanted to do?
You know, it's funny. I can say this now because Leland knows what I think of him, but I read the audition side that they sent, and it was that opening scene where Winona tries to coax him out of his apartment in the early morning hours, and I read it and I was like, it's not even, it didn't even like make sense. Like on the page I was like, I don't know what this means. The sentence structure is a little wonky. You know, it felt very much like I was just going in for you know, like an NYU undergrad, you know, semester film, which is fine. But at that time, I wasn't really interested in doing that. It wasn't until a few weeks later when I got after I got the offer, and I was a little overwhelmed. It took me a little bit of time to actually sit down and read the script. But I remember I started late at night one night, and I finished, I don't know, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and I was just overcome with excitement. And you know, it's hard to put in words like exactly what I was feeling, because I hadn't in my life seen a script that so embraced such a fleshed out little person role, and to know that I already had it in the bag, you know, that it was already mine to build, was really, really exciting. I did not sleep that night. And I think that there's so much that Leland and Wanfei infused in Peter and his journey. It was an honor to be able to step into Peter's shoes.
How would you, Matthew, how would you describe Peter, especially at the beginning of the film?
It's a good question. I think Peter, well, Juan Fei mentioned that we were collaborators from day one, and I believe that wholeheartedly. We discussed Peter in the beginning of the film as this beautiful, this beautiful lighthouse, right? Beautiful lighthouse, kind of on this beautiful coast, and there's so much there, and there's so much structure and rootage, and yet the light is just off, right? It's just that the light is just malfunctioning. And I think a lot of people, especially now in 2022, coming out of COVID, a lot of people have grieved for years now. A lot of people know what grief is. And I think Peter was in the throes of his own self-wallowing, and was grief stricken, in need of some person or something to pluck him out of his out of the depths of his depression, and that's Winona, of course. But yeah, it's someone who has so much potential, and knows how good he is with words and intellect, but yet, as one of the characters later in the movie says, he can't help but get in his own way, and of getting out of bed and carrying on with his life. And it's, I can relate to that as on personal levels. So it was both easy and difficult to bring that to life with Peter.
Sure. Juan Felipe, these characters seem so different at the very beginning, but obviously they find a common ground. But how would you say that Peter and Winona change each other?
I think in many ways, that's a good question. How did Peter and Winona change each other? I almost feel like they are opposites the entire time. And I think Unidentified Objects in its own way is an exploration on like almost like the substances and the tastes and that are within humanity, and sometimes we're not like again, they are opposites. Winona is like something that is constantly moving. It's like a ray of energy, and Peter is like a rock. And when you put them together in a road trip, what happens is, I think they get a little bit of each other. Like Winona becomes, in some ways, I don't know. That's an excellent question. I feel there's a lot. Let me just think about. Yeah, Winona, for example, for example, Peter is a person who would have never crossed a border undocumented, right? And Winona pushes him to that. And later in the story, we see how he crosses the subway turnstile without a subway card. That's something he would never do without having met Winona. And in the other way around, Winona is a person who, in many ways, is kind of like disconnecting from humanity and trying to like escape. She has a sense of escapism, constantly trying to like just get away from everybody else because she doesn't find a place. And in some ways, Peter is the one person who grounds her and who brings her back to reality, and who gives her a little bit of hope. Okay. And they find an unexpected friendship. I think we live in an age of where information and truth is just buried. Everybody has their own version of what truth is, and yeah. These two characters have very different perspectives of the world, and just putting them together, it allows for both of them to build a little bit of empathy for each other and understanding. Yeah. Which in some ways I feel is kind of like something that like just also acknowledging that those people who are alone and lonely and don't find anybody out there, I think it's kind of like trying to like show that they're not alone at the end of the day, that there's other people like them, and I feel like that's the main thing that they found from each other.
Exactly. I'm going to read a little bit of dialogue from the film because it stuck with me. I've watched it again recently. You want to know who and or what I am, Winona? I am a circle inside a circle inside a circle. I am a college-educated homosexual dwarf in a world with little to no patience for intelligence, for men who fuck other men, or who bother for a specific make or model. That's just amazing writing. That is just so specific. Matthew, when you read that, I mean, to me, it just that line of dialogue and the whole film just speaks to misfits, people who, may not be looked at, people in society may be looked down on the rest of us. How did you two look at that line in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think on that, we actually shot that scene the first day of filming.
Okay.
And that scene is the heart of the movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
That line you just read is what the movie is about at the end of the day. But yeah, Matthew, go ahead.
At a circle, because like Juan alluded to earlier, we're all circles inside of circles, right? Just society has these over the top expectations for everyone, whether you're disabled or gay. I mean, every single person feels encircled, whether professionally, personally, emotionally, spiritually. And I think that's why Leland was able to, I mean, Leland is incredibly gifted, but I think Leland, was able in his own way to kind of encapsulate that feeling. It's the human feeling of being restricted. And I do remember reading that, and I think Juan we were shooting that day, and we were like, we felt like this was, like Juan said, the kind of the heart of certainly Peter's journey, right? Because it was the first, I think that's maybe 20, 25 minutes into the film, and I think that is the first real crack audience gets to see, because up until that, Peter is kind of a real hard ass, right? He's not giving a lot for the audience to fall in love with.
Yeah.
And I think in that moment, like so many of us, we have barriers, right? We put up barriers to protect our hearts, to protect ourselves from everyone else out in the world. And I think Winona, in her specialty of unearthing, right, other characters and getting what she wants, in that moment, she enough of Peter for him to be willing to open up that much, right? And let her know, and kind of justify to her and to the audience, why he is the way he is, and what he's been dealing with. And Juan, did you want to?
Yeah, I think to add, in that same scene that you're talking about, there's a part where Peter asks Winona if she's like basically a whore of some sort. And Winona says, like, I do sex work, that's a thing I do, but that's not who I am.
Yeah.
And it kind of like, it opens the conversation about, and then she asks, who are you, Peter? Tell me about yourself, Peter. Who are you? And then he goes into, I'm a circle within a circle within a circle. And I think, I as Matthew says, it kind of comes down to, like, we put people in categories, and it's very easy to tag them and say, oh, here's the immigrant, here's the dwarf, here's the hooker, here's the homosexual person, here's all of this. And like in those tags in so many ways kind of like dehumanize, to a certain degree, the human being that is complex and is so much like behind that barrier. And I think that like that in some ways it's kind of like, as you said, this movie's it's like a love letter to misfits and to outsiders, and it's kind of like opening up the conversation to, like, like we're so much more than just that. There's so much more to me than and obviously the fact that, again, Peter, in a society where truth doesn't matter, like somebody who's a scholar, who's an academic, who studied Anton Chekhov, and like in Russian literature, in a society where people don't read anymore, and all of this, and then he also happens to be a little person who also happens to be so it's kind of like he lets out all this frustration he has with the world, and I think that's how you like and start building empathy with the characters, and then you understand why he's a piece of shit at the beginning. You understand, as Matthew was saying, why he has all these layers, because
Okay.
he is that lighthouse that is the brightest, most beautiful lighthouse in the world, but has no electricity.
Gotcha. Again, this film is just so quirky and original. Did you have problems getting it funded?
Yes, yes and no.
Okay.
I think we so when we were in production, I don't know, Matthew, know of this, maybe you do, because I told you everything, and we were like, but when we were in production, like seventh day of production or something like that, I knew we were gonna be super over budget already. The producer came up to me and say, like, we're so over budget. And then I was like, okay, like, what are we gonna do? Let's keep filming. Can we finish production? And he was like, let's try. And then when we finished, I edited a few scenes, and then I started raising the rest of the funds, and I started like bridging the gap. So I was very lucky that I was able to accomplish the goal. But if you asked Juan Felipe back then when we were doing that, it was one of the hardest things ever, to like get people to believe in you, and having to make the phone calls and be like, I need you to invest on my movie. I need to invest in me.
Great. Matthew, so I read that you went to Towson.
Yes.
That's funny. My husband graduated from Towson
Oh, wow.
a
That's
long time ago, but I was also reading that you I read an interview with you that said that you kind of always assumed that you'd be doing character roles and not specifically leading roles. So can you talk a little bit about getting the lead role in this and what this does for your career?
well, I don't really know what it does for my career.
Mhm.
I think we'll see as time goes on.
Yeah.
What that does for my career. Hopefully good things, but we'll see. But in terms of the role itself, excuse me. I no, I mean, I look. Looking back at history, right? You would say I would be foolish for expecting to ever star in a feature film, right? Because you can count on one hand the amount of feature films in the history of cinema that star a little person, and most of them are Peter Dinklage. So the odds were against me, my friend, and um, in describing this film and this experience for the past 2 years to people who are kind of on the fringes of what it's about and the people involved, I've always kind of introduced it as being kind of cosmic in a
Mhm.
way, which is a double meaning, right? And the film itself is very cosmic and sci-fi and out there and woo woo, but for me personally, there is that element of meeting Juan and Leland and this team, who have become, my family in many ways, and getting the opportunity and having them trust me with this opportunity, it feels cosmic, right? It just feels like it came from somewhere up there. Um, and I hope, right, my hope is that this film gets enough exposure and enough momentum where it builds an audience, and the people who need to see it will see it, so that they can be further encouraged and believe that there are so many diverse actors and storytellers out there that are waiting for their opportunity to tell, like you said in your own words, a completely original story, right?
Mhm.
A story I haven't quite seen before in the specific lens. And I that is my hope, is that this continues the momentum of where we are right now, of pulling people on the fringes and having them take center stage and letting them tell their story.
Okay. I got two more quick questions. One,
Sure.
Felipe, can you just talk about the tone of the film? Because I think there's such a great balance between drama, comedy, surreal moments, dream moments, some ambiguity. Can you just talk about working on that tone and just achieving such a great balance with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think, where do I start? Unidentified Objects for me is, for me, the movies that I love, that I'm fascinating about, usually are genre bending. They don't
Okay.
belong they don't belong to any specific kind of like just dramas or comedies. Usually they have a little bit of everything. From the road trip genre, in fact, in particularly, like if you look at Little Miss Sunshine, or if you look at movies like Y tu mamá también by Alfonso Cuarón, those kind of films like really like touched me and inspired me when it comes to like, okay, I want to make but how do you make it authentic? How do you make it unique? And I think the subject matter of the story, it allows you to be very tragic and very like introspective and like almost like humanistic and really explore tragedy and explore grief and explore relationships that could turn into a very dark drama, and like, but at the same time, like there's something about humanity that is also like so it's funny because Leland and I have spoken about this consistently, about the tone in terms of Anton Chekhov plays. Some of them are comedies, and tragedy and comedy is the same, is two sides of the same coin. And like if you are able to balance that, and you're able to make a character that is self-aware enough, and you kind of like hate him, but within his personality, you also find it funny, and there's layers, and that is impossible to do if you don't have top tier actors who can really like turn in themselves and give everything to play. And because we're never trying to play it funny, it's just some of the circumstances are funny. And then when it comes to the surreal and like the escape, the surreality, the fantasy, I feel for me those like as Martin Scorsese says, or like big filmmakers have said before, it's like cinema is like it's like plastic. It's like plasticity. It allows you to stretch time. It allows you to like play with, for dramatic purposes, for storytelling purposes, for suspension of the purposes. Our movie has a few, let's call it surreal or sci-fi sequences where we're able to get to the psyche of the character in very unique and authentic ways. So I basically use all those elements as a tool to navigate that, and again, I think it comes down to taste and like to like what I want to tell, and how do we tell it in an authentic way. And the ambiguity, I mean, for me, like audiences, my favorite movies are the movies where audiences are playing detective. Exactly. Where audiences are engaged, they're trying to anticipate where we're going, and maybe they're not getting there, and you manage and playing with those expectations. Modern audiences are incredibly smart. So I think just respecting, but all of this comes from passion and love for the craft, and from all of us, and just trying to like really understand kind of what like where we want to go, in the sense of like the authenticity, and where we want to try to tell like in a unique way.
Exactly. So what's next for both of you, and what's next for the film? We'll start with you, Matthew.
What's next for me? Oh, I hope a lot of things. We'll see. This summer I was really fortunate to be able to dip my toes back onto the stage, which is my original love. I did Shakespeare in the Park in the city, which was a really wonderful experience. Currently, I'm filming the final season, unfortunately, the final season of New Amsterdam on TV. That has been another family that I've been able to build over the past few years. So I will be to end that. And then it's seeing where this film goes, and I'll be looking for my next job in come January when New Amsterdam closes the curtains, and we'll go from there. Hopefully, I will be making many more films with this person right here. My role model in this industry, and I'll let him talk about where the film is going.
Jim, we are playing festivals. We're very excited for Out of Film. Out of Film, we are playing Fantastic Fest later next, like the 22nd. I don't know I think this is playing after that, but so we played Fantastic Fest. We're playing Sieges, which is our European premiere, which is interesting. All of this is fascinating from a perspective of, we started at Inside Out Toronto, which is like Toronto's queer festival, where we were like had an incredible. So this movie has has, in many ways, it's interesting because it has played really well with queer audiences, like disability festivals. And now we're playing science fiction festivals. So it kind of like tells you how weird and unique it is in its own way. And that alone has brought a lot of attention from press. So we actually, hopefully we're going to get some really good reviews by bigger trades in the next couple of weeks. Our goal right now is to find a distributor we have a sales agent called Bridge Independent. Our sales agent is called Bill Strauss. I think fantastic. We started doing some of those efforts since Outfest, and I think we're gonna start like having negotiations in Fantastic Fest. So hopefully September, October, you'll hear more about Unidentified Objects. At the end of the day, we're trying to find a distributor who can really, as Matthew said, find the right audience and really put this movie in front of the people who need to see it, because we believe, at least in many ways, I feel like us as a team, we're a medium. This movie came from like the universe conspiring. It's like I cannot tell you it's a project that I've been working for 10 years. No, it's like almost the universe came and like possessed us to get it made and make it and put it out there. And that's exactly what we're doing. And when it comes to my personal projects, I have two screenplays, one in Spanish, both with Leland. One that I co-wrote with Leland in Spanish. The other one, he's the main writer, but I'm story by both of us. That is, both are very exciting. So one is English speaking, the other one in Spanish, and hopefully we'll be shooting one of those next year. We're in the process where one of them is already as a semi-finalist on I heard yesterday. We'll probably, by the time this comes out, people will know, but for the PGA fellowship.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So PGA, and then we're applying to a few more opportunities for it. But yeah, figuring it out. And both, what all of them have in common, which is one of the things that I'm passionate about, is they're telling the stories of like characters who are not your typical like status quo. You know what I mean? They are more of I love stories about outsiders. Exactly. and people who live in the fringes. So all of them have kind of like that thing in common.
Exactly. The film is Unidentified Objects. It plays at Out on Film Sunday, September the 21st at 1 p.m. at the Midtown Arts Cinema, followed by a week of streaming. Again, I love this film. Please thank you to the director, Juan Felipe Zuleta, and actor Matthew August Jeffords. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank
for
you. Chatting.
It was great chatting with you. Thanks so much.
Great talking to you as well.